All right, folks, we're just making sure that all our connections were good. We're going out on Facebook, we're going out on X, and we're also going out on what else are we going out on? We're also Facebook, X, and YouTube, and all the channels are working properly. So we are all set. Fantastic. All right, here's the agenda. It is Chatham NC Sports Roundup every Thursday at noontime with me and Ashiba Rojas of the Chatham News and Record. There's a rundown. We're going to talk of wrestling. We're going to talk about basketball because that regular season is coming to an ending. Playoffs and tournaments, conference tournaments are just around the corner. We'll talk about the final regular season power rankings today. Whether you like it or not, it's the end. It's the end of the regular season. And then we'll also talk about what Ashiba has coming out in the Chatham News and Record newspaper. I got an email from somebody wanting to know when the Chatham News and Record comes out. I just confirmed with Ashiba. Paper comes out every Thursday morning. It starts rolling out on morning, and by noontime, it should be out and available. Or if you don't want to look for it, just subscribe. So there you go. And that way you can read about Ashiba's Athlete of the Week and all the rest of the stuff. There's also Chatham athletes doing well in the swimming tournaments that have gone on. And, of course, spring sports is getting underway. Some of the games or some of the practices have been postponed because of the rain. But we will have some information about that. And then Ashiba and I will talk about what we're going to be covering over the next week. So let me get rid of the graphic. Let me bring up Ashiba. And folks, if you're watching us on Facebook, you can follow on Facebook and leave comments because I do monitor that on the phone. So Ashiba, you were last Saturday in Greensboro for the big dual wrestling meet between East Side champions and the West Side champions. Seaforth was in there. Why don't you tell us how that all went?
Yeah, so Seaforth got into a really down to the wire, nail biting battle with RS Central. Lost that with 34-32. So they lost their second straight dual team wrestling state title. But this time, I mean, they kind of had their backs against the wall. They were down 19-0. Still not too far down, but it just looked like RS Central was really taking control of that duel. And then after I think the first four matches down 19-0, George Lloyd comes up with a big win. He gets a team point deducted for the celebration, but it really ignited the crowd, ignited the Seaforth sideline, and it really sparked a run where they actually came back, took a lead 26-25 after Gabe Rogers pinned RS Central's Aiden Gallegos. Go back and forth with RS Central, end up coming down to the last match. They're up 32-31 with Chance Cody going against Laws from RS Central. Chance Cody got to a pretty decent lead in the match. I think he was up about 6-2. Then that third period, he just couldn't get down from the under position, and Laws, just kept scoring, and eventually held him until that final buzzer. And RS Central got the points needed to win the state championship. So devastating loss for Seaforth. A lot of the guys were on the sideline, of course, in tears, a lot of emotions shared and poured out after that loss. But talking with Coach Ryan Armstrong and Harrison Compton after the meet, I mean, they feel like, the season's not over, of course. They still have to compete this Friday and Saturday for regionals, and then get ready to compete in states for whoever advances to that round for the individual state championship. And so that's the goal now, is going back and repeating what they did last year, which was winning that team individual state championship, getting as many points, getting some individual rings there, and finishing the season on a good note.
Yeah, I was going to say it's disappointing that they lost, but the fact that Seaforth's a young program and the fact that they've gotten into the dual meet championship 2 years in a row is pretty outstanding. I know the coaches are happy that they've gotten so far. They're disappointed in the loss, but Seaforth will continue to be a strong wrestling. I see them as continuing to have strong presence within not only here in the conference, but also in the state. All right, let's talk about basketball. There's a lot going on because it's getting towards the end of the season. You and I were at probably the biggest game because it was between two of your top power ranking team. It was power rank team number one, which was Northwood, went to Chatham Central. Your power team number two, and I agree with those power rankings. Do you want to touch on the boys or do you want to touch on the girls game first? Let's touch on the boys' game because I said 1 and 2. Let's go with that. What was your assessment of what you saw and the differences between the first time they played and this last time?
Yeah, and we talked with Northwood coach Matt Brown after the game about the differences. So Chatham Central, that first time, like we said, they slowed Northwood down, took long on those early possessions, and really kind of try to dictate the pace of that game and make sure Northwood, didn't get out in transition, get out to those runs like they did on Tuesday night, where Northwood start off the game on a big run, took a big lead over Chatham Central, and Chatham Central did battle in that first quarter, made it a close game. But that second quarter is really when Northwood turned it on. They started playing better defense. And I think, Coach Brown said that was the difference as well. The defensive intensity and the effort that they showed on Tuesday night at Chatham Central was much higher than that first time. So I think that was just a difference, right? And Northwood, we talked with them again a couple of weeks ago when they beat Seaforth. I mean, they're peaking at the right time. We've noticed all throughout the year, no matter who they plug in to the lineup, who they have out on the court, it's just the same level of play in any lineup they pretty much have. So I think Northwood showed just how dangerous of a team they could be, especially before this 2A playoff run. Of course, Chatham Central is 1A, but Chatham Central, for them, I think in that game, the biggest thing was just missing a lot of missed shots at the rim. And that's a credit to Northwood's defense as well. Chad Graves, Bo Harvey, Hayes Burleson, they did a good job from top to bottom, just making everything tough for Chatham Central, whether it's just ball pressure or contesting shots, whether that was, running Albright off the three-point line or just making Oldham beat them, which I think it was a lot of the game plan for Northwood in that game. And of course, Brennan Oldham still had a decent night. I think he had 16 points in that one. Albright had 16, but it wasn't the impact that the two have showed in games previously. So yeah, that's what I saw in that game. Just Northwood just imposing their will defensively, and of course you got Fowler still going for another 20 points, holding up his end on the offensive side, and other guys around him knocking down threes. 3-point shooting was a big thing. Of course, Josiah Brown came in and knocked down a couple of them. That built that lead going into the third and fourth quarters. So, yeah, just all around great team win for Northwood.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. Cam again had his 20 points, and I think high school OT had their top 20 players in the 919 area code, if I'm not mistaken, and Cam was among the top 20 players. So, what's your assessment of Cam this season? I think he's been improving from the start to. I mean, he's pretty much been very consistent.
Yeah, I mean, he's shown flashes of this in previous years as freshman, especially last year as well as a sophomore, and playing alongside Drake Powell. And now he's taken over as the primary offensive weapon for Northwood. And the thing too, he's also doing some great things on the defensive end as well. Getting into passing lanes and contesting shots at the rim. We see him going up for blocks, off the backboard. So he's using his athleticism, and I think he's just really playing loose, free, fun basketball this year. And that's really helped Northwood, especially in some of these big games. Even in that Chatham Central game a couple weeks ago when it was tight, Northwood needed some big shots. Cam Fowler was the one, to knock those big shots down. So I think he's just having a really, really good overall season. And it's impressive considering, like we said, he's still a junior, right? He still has another year to come back and get even better. And then his scoring just being consistent, averaging I think before this week he might have been at 20. He might be just under 20 now. I can't remember. But still, consistently, he's going to give you just about 20 every night. So I think the consistency part has really played a really big part in him having the successful season he's had, and also Northwood having the successful season they've had, considering, a lot of people might have kind of not wrote them off, but might have thought maybe they wouldn't be as good, this year without the generational talent that they had in Drake Powell. So, Cam Fowler, like I said, is having an outstanding season from my eyes.
Okay, let's get your assessment of some of the starters on the team. Chad Graves, I think from the beginning of the season, he's definitely improved where he's now not jumping into and to people going up for layups or people trying to take a shot. Although he did foul out in this game because he was pretty much on Brennan for most of it, and he did foul out before the end of the game. So even though Brennan didn't do as well as he usually does, Chad got fouled out on this game. So what's your assessment of Chad from the beginning of the season till now?
Yeah, Chad's another guy that has improved a lot, not just from the beginning of the season to now, but also when we look at the difference from last year to this year. And like you said, yeah, he's really doing a good job of playing better defense straight up, not getting into as much foul trouble, even though he's still going to get his fouls just because he's a big guy down there that has the task of contesting shots down low. And like you said, going up against a guy like Brennan Oldham, you want to make sure he doesn't get any easy baskets. But offensively as well, I mean, he's gotten better with being able to, hold the ball, go up strong. He's a better finisher around the rim. He's also a better rebounder. And we even said that on Tuesday night against Chatham Central, where offensive rebounds also played a big role in Northwood being able to get a big lead in that game, because it just seemed like even when Northwood had stretches of misses, they were always getting second and third opportunities, and Chad Graves played a big part in that. And so I see his improvements being a huge thing for Northwood going into their playoff run, and then of course they got to get through the conference tournament first, but going into the 2A East playoff run, I think having him down low as a threat will be huge for them, because now teams are going to have two things to worry about. We got to worry about containing Graves down low, making sure he doesn't have a big impact on the boards and in the paint. But also, we can't spend too much attention on Graves because we have a great set of perimeter guys like Josiah Brown, Cam Fowler, and Bo Harvey, of course, who handles the ball for Northwood. So, yeah, Chad also has been having a great season in my eyes. And like I said, I see that being an X factor for Northwood going into the playoffs.
How about Isaiah Blair? He was one of the two players that you talked to after the game, and we've got to talk about him, because if we don't, his mom and dad are going to harass me about it. They're like, "Well, you're not talking about our kid." Look, I know a lot of parents. We want to talk about all your kids as much as we can. So you're taking Mr. Blair.
Yeah, Isaiah, a starter for Northwood. And he's a guy that can kind of do it all. I know that's his Twitter handle, Mr. Do It All. And he's very athletic. He can slash to the basket. But defensively, that's his strongest suit to me. Just being able to guard pretty much anybody that he needs to. And I think we saw a lot of that, of course, Tuesday night, being able to guard Albright and stay in front of Chatham Central's guards as well. Luke Gaines, who has done some good things this year. And yeah, he has the ability to just kind of take away certain parts of opponents' offenses. And then, of course, in transition, he's a threat when he gets a steal, gets his hand on the ball. I mean, it's very hard to stop him with that athleticism. He tried. I think he tried for a dunk. Cam tried for a dunk Tuesday night as well. But I mean, he just adds to just the great defensive intensity that Northwood has, and then also too adding that with his offensive game, like we said, just using the athleticism, the ability to create his own shot. He can also knock down some threes as well. I mean, he's just an overall one of Northwood's most versatile players, if you ask me. And kind of like Bo Harvey, who's also versatile, being able to handle the ball. Those two guys get a little, might go unsung when you look at what Northwood has this season, but I feel like Northwood doesn't hum the way they do without Isaiah Blair, without Bo Harvey. And then you can even throw in Hayes Burleson as well, who's been a really good defender and a three-point shooter for Northwood this season.
Yeah, I like the fact that you mentioned those other guys. Also, Bo Harvey hit 1,000 points, and it's interesting because I had a chance to talk to Drake Powell after one of the UNC games, and he actually heard about the fact that Bo hit 1,000 points, career points, and he gave a shout out to Bo. So I just want to let Bo and his friends and family know that, yes, your former teammate is paying attention to how you're doing. All right, so let's talk about Bo, and let's talk about Hayes, because as you said, those guys are there when you need them. They played an important part in that game against Chatham Central. So again, your assessment of those two.
Yeah, like I said, Bo has been just an outstanding point guard for Northwood. handling the basketball and making sure the ball keeps moving in that offense, right? And a lot of times, if you watch Northwood's offense, can't go. There's not a possession where Bo doesn't have it in his hands, because he's the one, he's looking to see if Fowler's coming open, cutting across the baseline, or dishing it down to Graves as well. He's really good at driving and kicking and finding open teammates. And then defensively as well. I mean, I think he's one of the top the leaders, one of the leaders in Northwood in the steals category as well. So just another guy. I mean, if you look at Northwood, they got guys up and down that go both ways, right? That could play the same level defensively as they do offensively. And once again, Harvey is another one of those guys where it's someone you kind of have to worry about, because when the ball moves, okay, yeah, we're swinging it to Fowler. We're going to close out on Fowler hard, or we're going to close out on Burleson hard. But if they swing it back to Harvey, he can also knock down the three. He could also dribble in, take a mid-range shot, and knock it down. That's why he's a 1,000-point scorer, right? So, yeah, just another piece of Northwood's team that's just very versatile, very crucial, right? Because like we said, he handles the basketball, he does it well, doesn't commit too many turnovers, because he's really good at seeing the floor, running the offense, and making sure it runs smoothly.
All right. And let's also talk about some of the subs that came in. You had Rajay come in there. You had Josiah. I think there might have been one or two other players, and that they did pretty well when they came in as substitutes, which I think is going to, again, continue to be a good point for Northwood next year.
Yeah. Speaking of, Rajay Torres, Josiah Brown, smaller, you look at him, smaller guard stature wise, but athleticism, skill is all there, and the want to as well defensively, especially if you talk about Rajay Torres. You can put him on your guard and he's going to be just a pest, just all in the grill, getting the hand on the ball. He can also jump up. He has a really high vertical. If you guys ever watch Rajay play, both on the football field and the basketball court, very athletic kid that can go up and contest a shot as well. And he's also a really good ball handler too, in transition and kind of, being that guy come off the bench to help kind of facilitate the offense when some of the starters aren't in. And then with Josiah Brown, like we said, a little bit of the same things, right? Very athletic, very shifty offensively, and he's incredibly hard to stay in front of. And then also that you have to worry about his three-point shot, whether that's shooting it off the dribble. We've seen him do the crossover behind the back, step backs into a three, pro style type moves. But also as a spot up shooter, right? If he's just leaving wide open, he's going to knock it down. I mean, he's that type of shooter where if he's open, you can almost guarantee it's going to go down. So yeah, those are really two important guys for Northwood off the bench, and especially Brown, because I see him being kind of another X factor in those playoff runs where they need a big shot. They need someone to come in, hit a three, kind of help facilitate the offense, give the defense something else to worry about to free someone else up. And yeah, that's definitely the type of player he is.
Yeah, we had a chance to touch base with him on a previous game where he had, I think, 3 threes in the game against Chatham Central. Again, he seemed to be in the zone on those threes, just set up and let it loose and went in. Before we talk about where everybody's lining up in the conference, because we got the conference tournament coming up next week, and it's very likely that Chatham Central may meet up against Northwood again. What's your take on the Chatham Central players? You got Reed Albright, who we know CCCC has offered a spot to, and actually their coaching staff was out at the game, at the Chatham Central Northwood game, and then you got Brenna, and then you got Mr. Glover out there as well. So what's your rundown of the the number 2 in the power rankings, the Chatham Central basketball team?
Yeah, Chatham Central, I mean, if you look at the box scores, watch the games. I mean, the 2 guys you have to worry about, of course, are Brennan Oldham, the forward, who's kind of like a stretch forward. He can handle the ball. He can come down and just dominate the game, whether that's with assists, rebounds, points as well. And then you have Albright, who can do the same thing, just at the guard position. And I think we have 2 guys that really have no limits as far as positioning or size advantage or disadvantage when it comes to being in the paint. It's really hard to beat a team like that because, you might, especially with Albright, right? You might think you have him corralled, off the 3-point line or out on the perimeter, but he can also drive. He's very good at the give and go, right? He'll pass it, he'll cut, he'll come to a jump stop, and then he's a very good decision maker in that position, right? He'll either go up strong, finish through contact, or he could make the right pass and get the assist. So when you play Chatham Central, they're a very tough team to defend because they also have other guys like Luke Gaines who can shoot the basketball, who can put the ball on the court and make his own baskets as well. Athletic defenders like Jeremiah Young, Aiden Johnson, who's another big, but that can actually shoot the three. We've seen Aiden hit a couple threes this year, and he doesn't really hesitate to take those shots. And when he makes them, it just adds another aspect of their offense that makes them very difficult to guard. Now, and so that's what I see with Chatham Central, and defensively, because we know Oldham, he can get the blocks down low. Gaines as well, Gaines and Albright with the steals, especially Albright with the steals, they can really turn you over. Coach Burt, he's a really great coach. He has that experience with this team, especially Albright, who's been in his varsity position for some years, and down at that 1A level, when they get into the playoffs, playing the competition they did this season with Southeast, Northwood, even Seaford, playing in those tight games, I think it's really going to help them in a couple weeks when they try to make that run for possibly a 1A title or go as far as they want to go.
Yeah, I think definitely agree with your assessment. And folks, just want to let you know, we did a video of both the girls and boys Chatham Central versus Northwood games, and I want to say Ashibo was a commentator on that. So if you like the information you're hearing now, you need to watch, or if you want, just listen to Ashibo, because when I do it, it's kind of like, okay, here's so-and-so, and they scored so-and-so points, and we got this much time left in the game, and so-and-so's leading. But Ashibo, since he's the sports writer and a lot more intelligent about this than I, gives you a nice running assessment as you're going through the quarter. So yeah, you can watch it on the net feed, but you're not going to get the commentary that you get from Ashibo. So with some of the stuff you're hearing now, if you watch the video, you'll be able to hear him commentating during each one of the 4 quarters. Before we get into girls basketball, let's just do a quick rundown of the rest of the basketball teams on the boys' side here in Chatham County and how they're lining up in Woods and Chatham Charter will be in a different conference, but let's talk about what you see coming up in the conference tournament games this coming next week.
Yeah, so with the way the Mid-Carolina 1A, 2A conference is laid out right now, and I think teams pretty much just have one more game left after tomorrow before we really know how it's going to finish out. Northwood, I feel like Northwood is definitely good enough to the point where we can say they're going to be in that final game for the conference tournament championship. Now, I think the second team, their opponent, is going to come down to 2 or 3 teams. The main 2, of course, Southeast Alamance and Chatham Central. They split the season series, and Southeast Alamance is very dangerous, especially from the 3-point line, and they're a really good defensive team as well. They play up tempo. They like to speed you up, and that's the kind of thing they did to Chatham Central the first time they played and actually beat Chatham Central. They've done that to Seaforth as well. They've done that to Northwood that the first time they played. And so I think the key teams to look at as far as competing with Northwood in this tournament will be those 2, Southeast and Chatham Central. And I don't know. I think it could be a toss-up between those 2 teams because, like we said, Southeast Alamance has proven to be pretty dangerous, and especially when it's going to be at their place. If they make it to the final, the championship is going to be at Southeast Alamance. That could be, a tough battle, tough matchup to beat them at their spot. And I've heard it's, great environment, great crowd, great place to play, and I'm sure they'll be fired up for that, especially if they get a third chance at Northwood or Chatham Central and can secure that second automatic berth from the conference. So yeah, and the C4 too. I think C4 does have a chance because they're the fourth best team in the conference, and I think after C4, it's a big difference in competition, and C4 is kind of there in the middle. I think we've seen the Hawks kind of compete with some of these teams early on in these games. They just haven't been able to finish these games, and so I think maybe if they do figure it out and be able to finish strong, make it interesting with some of these teams at the end. They've done it with Chatham Central twice this year, and probably should have beat them one time. You could arguably say they could have swept Chatham Central this season. They could find what was working in those games and stay consistent in that. They could be a dangerous team in this tournament as well.
All right, and before we get into the girls, let me bring up this is the final power ranking for the regular season, and this is what we've got for. And Sheba and I talked about this before we came on board, but this is pretty much what's been for the last. I think this is the third week in a row. It's pretty much been the same. Shebo's got Jordan Matthews is 6, Chatham Charter is 5, Woods Charter is 4, then Seaforth is 3. Chatham Central at 2, and Northwood at 1. And Sheba and I had talked about what happens if Chatham Central beats Northwood. Would they be able to switch? That didn't happen, so we're not going to worry about that. So I pretty much agree with this power rankings, and I don't think there's any reason for us not to agree. But if you're a parent or a friend of one of the players on one of the teams that's not 1 or 2 or 3, you're more than welcome to have the discussion. We've talked to this about several coaches, and they don't have a issue with this. They find it to a certain extent as an inspiration for their teams to play harder. Anything else to say about the power rankings before we move on to the girls?
No. Yep. This is where it's going to be. I think this is where it's going to be for the end of the regular season, of course. When we do our I think our actual final one is going to be for next week's paper. But yeah, I mean, if I do say something, I would say, the charter schools, very interesting to watch this year, because I think they could have went back and forth. They did split the season series. We could get a chance to see them again, play each other again in the Central Tar Heel 1A conference tournament. And of course, they were 2 and 3 in the conference. I think Woods right now was 2, Chatham Charter 3, and they could end up tied if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they could. I think they could end up tied in the conference as well. So, will be very, very cool to see them meet again for another big game in the conference tournament. But yeah, this is where I think teams are and where they're going to be for the rest of the season. All
right, let's move on to the girls, and let's have you start. I don't know. Do you want to start with Seaforth or Northwood when it comes to the girls team? I guess Seaforth's got the conference first spot clinched. And Northwood's into the game, but again, Seaforth beat Northwood twice this season. So why don't you give us a rundown of the girls basketball scene here in Chatham County?
Yeah, so of course, big game from last week with Seaforth playing Southeast Alamance. In that game, Seaforth, they did lose their first regular season conference game since I think 2023. It's been a long time since Seaforth has lost a conference regular season game. In Southeast Alamance. It was a close game the first time, came down to the wire. This one also comes down to the wire. Southeast kind of had a lead over Seaforth for most of the game. And even though Seaforth did have their runs where they came back and took the lead, but they just were in control. The combination of Shania Paler, Clara LaChapelle, Anissa McIver, I mean, those and Natalie Lopez as well. I think she knocked down a whole bunch of threes in that game. They're just a really tough team to beat because they have so many girls that can beat you. And I think Seaforth got a taste of that last week. And so as far as the rest of the county, Northwood, third place in the conference, they got a big win over Chatham Central on Tuesday as well. Chatham Central, of course, we knew they wouldn't be up to the level of some of these 2A teams in the conference, but they're still fourth in the conference because they're still better than the rest of the 2A teams in the conference. And so, we can't get too much off of them in some of these games, but we know the Bears will have a good chance of making some more noise in the 1A tournament like they did last year where they made it to the third round. The only thing is the seeding kind of hurt them, right? Because they had to travel for those games. instead of being able to host as much as they wanted to. But yeah, when it comes down to, the Big Carolina went into a conference, Seaforth, Southeast Alamance, I think they're on a crash course for that conference tournament championship next week. And it's going to be a big game. I'm not sure if Seaforth is going to have Peyton Collins for next week in the conference tournament. She did get hurt in the game against Southeast last week, but I'm hearing that she will be able to return at some point this season. So it wasn't as bad as it may have looked on Tuesday night, but she's going to be huge for C4 too, because she can knock down threes. She can play really good defense. And as we see what the score is this week, C4 beating JM 53-14, then turn around and beating Graham 64-30, finishing the season out strong. I do think they wish they did get that game over Southeast so they could have clinched it already, but it's looking like it's going to be a tie actually for the first place spot in the conference between them and Southeast.
Yeah, I think, as you said, had they won that game against them, they would have gone up there. But yeah, we're hoping things work out where everybody's playing in full strength. Let's bring up the power rankings for the girls. And again, Ashibo and I looked at this before this came up. Ashibo, you want to run through it?
Yeah, so power rankings for the girls: Seaforth at 1, Northwood at 2, Chatham Central at 3, Chatham Charter at 4, Woods Charter at 5, and 6, Jordan Matthews. And yeah, I mean, looking at the power rankings, like we said, it's been the same for the last couple of weeks. So every team is about where they're going to be for this postseason. And yeah, I mean, like you said, there's not much to it now at this point of the season, with some teams getting ready for the playoffs. I know power rankings, like you said, have been source of inspiration for some teams, but it's coming to the end of it, and now power rankings don't matter. It's just winning games, surviving, and advancing. So, yeah, I think this is a fair assessment of where the teams are in the county, though, as far as the end of the regular season.
Yeah, surviving as and advancing. That's kind of surprising to hear a UNC guy refer to a NC State coach's reference. All right, folks. Again, we got coming up next what stories she's got in the Chatham News and Record. As I mentioned at the beginning, I did get an email. Somebody asked, when does the paper come out? The paper comes out. The Chatham News and Record comes out with Ashibo stories on Thursdays. They start delivering them on Thursday morning and get them delivered throughout the morning. And then if you don't want to wait around for the paper, you can also subscribe. You can go on to the website. Ashibo also posts stuff on his X account, which is, let me put that up so you guys can see that information. Ashibo, it's at Ashibo R38. So you can also follow him. His X count of followers continues to grow, and you will find stuff that he posts during the games and also after games. And we're also going to talk about where Ashibo and I will be tomorrow night, but we're not going to get to that yet. What we want to talk about is, Ashibo, tell us what you've got coming out in this week's paper today.
Yeah, so we got our story from Seaforth's duel with RS Central in the state championship duel last weekend. We got a story from Seaforth and the girls and boys losing those games to Southeast Alamance last week. We also have our roundup, of course, highlighting our swimming state champions, and we'll get to one of them in a second and shout out our state champions and state placers from that meet. And then we also have a story with Seaforth celebrating 10 athletes signing to college programs. Of course, Gabby White signing to Virginia for women's basketball. Jack Anstrom signing to NC State for cross country. Will Quickie signing to Charlotte for track and field. Caitlin Zanga, UNC for fencing. Emma O'Rourke, Gardner Webb for women's soccer. Lane Armstrong, wrestling. He's going to Mount Union. Evan Hepburn for swimming. He's going to Bucknell. And Benjamin LaJoy for swimming, going to Ithaca. Cameron Exley for lacrosse will be going to Mary Washington. And then Kendall Anderson from the volleyball team will be going to Geneva. So you can read more about their high school careers and, of course, where they're signing in the paper this week. And then also, of course, we have another monthly edition of our college check-in. just want to shout out because it didn't make this week's story. But of course, Jaron Stevenson at Alabama, he had a career high 22 points versus Texas on Tuesday. He went 4 for 5 for the 3-point line. So college athletes are still doing good. And then in that story it came out now in the paper, but it will be online tomorrow. We have an update on who will be playing the Diamond Sports this season with baseball and softball starting at the collegiate level. We got a few athletes from the county that's making some of their debuts or continuing their careers. So, yep, that's what we have in the paper this week.
Yeah, and I just want to let folks know that both Shibo and I have heard back from folks that they enjoy that feature that Shibo's doing, where he's tracking some of the Chatham County athletes who've gone on to play at the college level. So, again, if you like what you read that Shibo's putting out there, let him know. You can either email him, or if you're following him on X, you can DM him, or just when you run into him, just say, hey, I appreciate seeing that, because that feedback is important, and it's nice to know that folks are paying attention to and appreciate what Shibo's doing. All right, you mentioned swimming. We've actually had, and it was on the agenda, we've had some really good stuff going on with swimming here in Chatham County. So do you want to talk about swimming first and then talk about the athlete of the week, or do you want to go into the athlete of the week and then talk about swimming?
Well, we can do swimming first because I can talk about another state champion. We can do our state placers, and then we can talk about our athlete of the week.
All right, let's do it.
Yep. So just a highlight, don't want to reveal anything if you guys don't already know, but because it was big news. But just to start, we got C4 junior Sydney Burley winning the girls 100 meter fly state title with a time of 56.97 seconds. C4's senior Evan Hepburn also won a state championship. He won the boys 100-yard breaststroke title with a time of 57.17 seconds. And that time earned him All-American consideration. We also had Northwood senior Abigail Emmerich. She earned second place in the girls 200 freestyle with a time of 1:50.13 seconds. That time also earned her All-American consideration. That's the first of her times in her career to reach that standard. And then some of our county placers, we have on the boys' side for the 200-yard medley relay and the 400 free relay, the team of Jackson Vaughn, Evan Hepburn, Benjamin LaJoy, and Colton Roberts for C4. They earned second place in both of those events. And then in the 200 free, Colton Roberts also earned third place. And the 100 free, Evan Hepburn got second place. And then the 500 free, Colton Roberts got third place in that one as well. On the girls' side, 200-yard individual medley, Sydney Burley, who won a state championship, like we mentioned before, she earned third place in that event. And then Abigail Emmerich getting second place also in the 100 back on the girls' side. So, yeah, great showing from the county teams. The highest team finisher was C4's boys. They got third with a score of 169 in the 1A2A team standings. So, yeah, great showing for the county athletes. And then now we can get into the biggest showing, the biggest performance from a county athlete, which was Woods Charter sophomore, Daisy Collins, who won state titles for the girls 200 free and the 500 free. And then we're going to go ahead and highlight her as athlete of the week as well. She earns athlete of the week honors for the week of February 3rd because in her state title wins, girls free with a time of 1:47.92 seconds, and the 500 free with a time of 4:45.36 seconds. Both of those times were record-breaking times for the 1A, 2A meet records. And she also met the All-American standard, I think, for both of her times. And because of all of that, the great performance from her, she was named the meet's most outstanding swimmer as well. So just a great day for Collins. If you guys remember, she won the 500 free state title last year as a freshman. And over the summer, she swam for Team USA in the World Aquatics Open Water Swimming Junior World Championships in Italy. And she helped Team USA reach a first place finish at that event. So she's so young in her career, but she's already done some great things. So congrats to Daisy Collins from Woods Charter on finishing a great swimming season at the high school level.
Yeah, it's neat to see that we've got great athletes all throughout Chatham County, whether you're a charter school, small school, big school, or a public. Well, charter schools are public too, but any one of the schools. We got lots of athletes, and the neat thing is Ashibo also follows up on them when they go on and play in college careers. And also, I did not know that Daisy had swum in Italy. So there you go. That's a new piece of information that I learned about. All right. We got spring sports coming out, but we're probably not going to hit too much on that because we got baseball, and we're going to hit on that next week unless you got something to say. I know a lot of stuff got postponed this week because of the rain. So are we going to tackle spring sports starting next week?
Oh, we could start talking a little bit about it. I think the official starts of like game times, gameplay is later this month. But yeah, teams are already hitting practice fields. I think the spring sports season officially started on Wednesday, and I was joking with Chatham Central softball coach John Wharf at the Central and Northwood game. He was like, "It's our season now," and I was like, "Yep, it's that time of the year for the spring sports." So yeah, we can definitely start talking about what we're looking forward to this coming season. I think we got 2 new coaches in baseball at Seaforth and Northwood as well. Seaforth, looking to bounce back from a great season last year, deep run in the playoffs. They're bringing a lot of those guys back, and yeah, it should be an exciting spring season coming up. Of course, we got a state championship team looking to repeat as well with Seaforth girls soccer. So plenty to talk about.
Yeah, and the neat thing is daylight savings time isn't that far away, which means I'll be able to get out there and get more pictures because they look better when there's more sunlight. All right, so that's going to be coming up next week. We talked basketball. We talked about the athlete of the week. I have finally managed to convince Ashibo that we need to be out there because it's one of the biggest things here in Chatham County, the middle school basketball championships. That's taking place at JM tomorrow. So Ashibo is going to be there. I will be there. We don't know who's going to be playing in there yet, do we?
Not yet. Yep, we still got the boys semifinalists. Semifinals playing tonight. I think the girls semifinals was played last night, and yeah, the 2 games tomorrow. I think girls at 5:00, boys at 6:15 at Jordan Matthews.
All right, so folks, Jordan Matthews, 6:15. We will see you there. Ashibo, anything else before we close up this week?
Yeah, and don't forget as well, tomorrow, we got some county runners running in the 1A, 2A indoor state championship for track, 4 p.m. at JDL Fast Track in Winston-Salem. Seaforth has some runners that should have a pretty good chance of winning state, like Will Quickie in the 1,600 and 1,000 meter runs, Sebastian Calderon in the 500 and 300 meters runs as well. Jack Anstrom, of course, we know he's a great runner, multi-time state champion. Looking for another one in the 3,200 meter run, and Seaforth's boys 4x400 meter relay. I think is seated second as well, so they have a pretty good chance of competing for state. So should be another good winter sports championship for the county tomorrow as our county athletes compete in the state championship.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up. Hey, thanks again for everyone who follows. We've got about 1,000 of you that watch us every week. We appreciate that. No special guest this week, but we may have some special guests coming up in the upcoming weeks. Again, with spring sports coming up, we'll get a batch of new coaches. I think the coaches out there that see the opportunity that allows them to talk about their teams and how they're doing in sports here in Chatham County. This is just another venue for them to get the information out as to what's going on here in Chatham County. And we appreciate all you folks who are watching. So, Ashibo, anything else before we say bye?
Nope, I think we got it all covered.
All right. As always, Mr. Ashibo, he's the man. He knows his sports, and you got plenty of information